Well, good afternoon, everybody. How we doing? How's everybody doing today? Welcome in, everybody. If you are unfamiliar, if you just happen to be scrolling by, you don't know what this is about or why I'm live or what I'm doing, my name is Paul Turner from thediscipleproject.net, and I help youth pastors build successful youth ministries. That's what this show is about. This is what my YouTube channel is about. That's what I want to do. I want to help youth pastors build successful youth ministry, because if they're successful in the sense of drawing students, then my hope would be that they are discipling students. And if they're discipling students, they're sending out students who are then bringing in back more students. So that is the whole deal. At least that's my definition of success. And so I help youth pastors, come to. I think that is the conclusion that most youth pastors come to. They want to see more students. They want to see young people come to Christ. They want to see them discipled, and they want to see them go back out into the world and make a difference. And so that's it. That's what I do. I try to help youth pastors build successful youth ministries. And so welcome today. Hope that you're having a great day today. If you jump in here, let me know where you're from, where you're at, what state, what country. I started doing these at 2 o'clock in the afternoon so that I could reach out to my friends over in the UK who may be just settling down for the evening, having a cup of tea maybe, and just kind of hanging out. And so I'm here, for them as well. So my goal today, as in every Wednesday, 2 p.m., I try to answer 3 questions that I've been given so that I can answer those questions. If you have a question during this live stream, go ahead and put something in the chat. You can put your question there, or you can, if you're watching this in the future, put it down in the comments there, and I'll be happy to answer that question as well. I also do it on Wednesdays because, Wednesday is a popular day of the week for most youth ministries to meet, whether they're meeting in a small group or whether they're meeting in their midweek meeting or whatever it is. And so hopefully maybe I can answer some of your questions as we go along. Let me go ahead and just grab a sip here. I've got talkie issues. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into today then with our first question. First question, and this comes from Nate Jacob. Nate Jacobs has been following along on the channel there. By the way, if you're not a subscriber, come hang out, join, and that way you can be notified when I go live and when I put out a video. So be sure to go and click that subscribe button while you're here. But he asks a question. He says, what are some ways to disciple students besides preaching, teaching on typical youth nights? And it's a good question because when you have, preaching, and I've addressed this, there's actually a short that I did where somebody's talking about preaching, and they were talking about the preaching length of time and so forth. And, preaching is one aspect of discipleship. Okay, it's one aspect of discipleship. I don't think all preaching is done via, nor should it be done just preaching, because just preaching is very one-sided. It's very me to you, but there is no interaction. What we see Jesus doing in the scriptures is he's not just preaching. He's not just having the Mount of Olives, or he's not just doing the Beatitudes. He's bringing his disciples closer, and he's having these conversations with them. And so, other than, I think that, Nate, I'll give you some options, some ideas that I think, as far as other than preaching. Preaching's one aspect of discipleship. It's not the only aspect. There's a lot of people who try to disciple via that, if I just preach and get a student to the altar and pray with them and then release them, then that's it. And that is, quite frankly, just the beginning. And so how do you then, what are some other ways you can use? Well, there's, building those relationships, like I said, with Jesus. Jesus is doing life and doing journey with kids. So, things simple, something simple like scheduling trips, right? So when you have a trip with a student or a bunch of students, you're going somewhere with them, right? You're in a van with them for 6 hours, right? Schedule a long distance trip, right? Where you're going to go somewhere, and during those times, you have a student with you, you have a bunch of students with you for about 6 hours. You're going somewhere, and on the way, you're having discussions, you're asking questions, you're doing life with them, right? 1 hour a week, it's just not going to cut it as far as life type stuff, right? As when you're going along with students on the journey. So when you do trips, when you schedule a camp, when you either take kids to camp or when you create your own camp, when you do a weekend retreat, right? You have extended time with them. And so when you're doing that and you're having those conversations with them in the process of that, you're doing discipleship. And once again, if you only have the hour a week, maybe instead of just preaching or doing the lesson, maybe scheduling small groups within there. So in other words, you say, okay, well, we're going to have discipleship. So depending on the size of your group, I have a small youth group. By the way, I'm still a part-time youth pastor of a small youth group. And so I had to change my style from just preaching, teaching to now we're having discussion, right? So I could get up in front of 15, 20, 25 kids and share a message. But even when I did that, I would make sure that there was a small group time that we would have where either currently in my situation with my group, I will have conversations, right? So it's not just me speaking, it's me asking questions. And if Jesus did anything well, he asked questions. And so I will ask questions of the text, and it'll be part preaching, right, and part teaching, but part small group discussion where they are interactive with the message, because that way I can kind of know what they're thinking about what I'm saying, and then I can further open up the discussion to where they're at. Well, here we go. We got Steve Case here. Steve says, discipleship happens when you are watching the world's most production of Music Man on Thursday night. Presence is everything. Okay. I get that. I understand that. Presence and everything. Steve makes a great point there. Being with students is a powerful statement that when you're just with kids, right? And there's no agenda per se, right? You don't want to, everything can't be about, well, I'm just going to win you to the Lord and I'm going to do this. And it's very goal driven, right? Whereas if you are just living your life with them and you're just hanging out with them, truth can come across. Truth can make its way into conversations. Truth can make its way into all kinds of things. And so other than teaching and preaching, right, is just having these conversations. So you may have to, Nate, retool your Wednesday night and say, okay, how can I have more discussions? You may go ahead and plan some events and activities that are extended times other than that. So plan a retreat, plan camp. Plan a trip that's longer than, maybe it's 2 to 3 hours away, right? It's a 2-hour drive and a 2-hour back. So you get 4 hours of whatever you're doing and then the trip you're actually on. So to answer your question, Nate, I think it just requires you to do some retooling to where you can to have an extended time with students where you just get to be with them, where it's not just teaching and it's not just lessons. If you retool your Wednesday night to where it's more discussion driven, where it's not just, or if you're having small groups or multiple small groups, depending on the size of your group. And like I said, sometimes it's just a matter of just hanging around and being a part of kids' lives, showing up to games, right? Showing up to their band practices, showing up to their football games. And even though there is no depth of conversation there, your presence there communicates that you care for them, you love them, you are interested in what they're doing. And funny enough, when you do that, they become interested in what you're saying. So I hope that helps you. Steve, thanks for chiming in there. That's a very good point, and I'm glad you brought that up. And so for those that may be just coming in here, by the way, if you're unaware of what is going on here, this is the weekly Q&A called Office Hours. And I try to help youth pastors build successful youth ministries and by answering their questions, and also maybe offering just a little bit of wisdom if I can. Okay, so we're going to get into question 2, and before we get into question 2, though, I do want to show you a resource that a book that I wrote called The Disciple Project Outreach Manual. And it is all about. It is, once again, this is not. I'll say this. This is not for everybody. This is something I did with my youth group because I wanted that discipleship time with them, and I wanted to take away. The only thing I could do, because students are only going to give you so much time, I made it very much a Wednesday night focus, where in the spring or summer, part of the summer, we would go out and actually do the things beyond. I think doing is the greatest teacher, right? So that little tagline at the bottom says, "Stop the meeting, start the movement, raise up a new generation of doers." That's what I wanted. And the only way that was going to happen, well, the only way I did it in the past was through missions trips, take them out. But then I wanted to do that on a regular basis. So I wanted to do that 3 out of 4 times of a month. So I did it for 3 months, where 3 weeks out of the month, I took them various places, or I sent them off in teams, much like Jesus did when he sent off the 70, and they visited their friends. They prayed. They went to people in our church and prayed for widows. They prayed for the elderly. They did sick visits. They did those things. And I just think that's critically important, because it's not entirely about what you believe. It's about what you practice. And so the only time these students are going to practice these things a lot of the time are the opportunities that I give them to do that within the ministry of context of youth ministry. Of course, parents can do this all the time, and parents, are the chief disciplers of their kids. And so we hope that that's going on. But if you're interested in a resource and a book that explains my thoughts and ideas on discipleship and gives you a model, a short-term model that you're interested in, and you can do this not during you can do it on a Wednesday night if you want. I did that because that's the time they gave me. You can fashion it after a weekend. You can do a weekend out of it. You can make a retreat out of it. You can do a half day with it. There's lots of things you can do with it. So if you were interested in that, I will put a link down below, and you can check that out for yourself. Okay? All right, so let us carry on to, let's see, we're going to go to question number 2. Question number 2 here. Where is that? There we go. Question number 2 is, how should you be with your feelings and struggles with your youth? And I probably should have rephrased it. So how honest should you be? How honest should you be with your feelings and struggles with your youth? It's a good question, because there's a lot of times with students that, and this is one, I'm guilty of this, where you allow your frustrations, your ministry frustrations, your feelings and frustrations about how youth are going, that it bleeds over into your preaching, your teaching, your interactions. It comes out in sarcasm. It's never good. It's never good. Don't do it. I know you want to say it. I know you want to take your frustration out on the students, but don't do that. That's not a good idea. So I'm going to say, if you're going to share feelings, right? The Apostle Paul shared his feelings in very strong ways in the letters that he wrote. And these letters were read publicly. The epistles were read publicly to the conversation. So he would talk about the tears he cried. He would talk about how earnest he was in prayer. He would talk about these things. And for us, it's, once again, he is doing it. He's writing them from jail, first of all. Okay. He's writing these letters from jail. And so his perspective is a little different than ours. Ours is our ego. The problem is that our ego is hurt because kids won't bring their friends. I'm under pressure from my pastor. I have to grow this youth group, and I have to do these things. And so we're frustrated with parents, with students, with our pastor, and that cannot be the driver of the emotions. In other words, if you're feeling all that pressure, probably best not to say anything, because it's not going to be fruitful. Right? It's not going to be fruitful. So how would you then share your feelings? And I have felt this. Let me tell you something. God has checked me before. And and there's something that I've been wanting to say sometimes with my youth group, and God would say, "Yeah, you probably shouldn't do that. Don't do that. That's not fair to them. Because a lot of they don't have control over some things, Paul, and that's not fair to put that on them. It's not fair to make them guilty of these things. It's not fair. So the Lord's check, man. You have to be wise in doing that. Now, can you share your feelings with your students? You can, but I would do it you have to do it from a pure place. You have to do it and you have to be able to do it from a place of, like, example, if you said, if you talked about your role and your responsibility to your students, right? Guys, my responsibility as a youth pastor, my sole purpose is not to entertain you. It's not to be your friend all the time. And for your students to understand your role as a pastor, as a shepherd, as one who leads and guides. I think if you're coming the way the Apostle Paul did, right? He was passionate about them loving one another, caring for one another, serving one another, right? A lot of one another's throughout his letters. And so if you're going to share your feelings, your frustration, if you will, you have to come from a place that doesn't involve guilt, that doesn't involve your own frustrations. It has to come from an absolute love and care for the body of Christ, of what you're trying to do as a group, as a leader. And I don't think you need to talk very long about it. I think that you can do it. It can be weaved in to your teaching or your message, and not to make it a focal point. And not, guys, hey guys, I just want to share my feelings with you, and then go on a rant. That's oftentimes what it comes across as one who has done it. So how do you then do it? Well, I think that's something you have to pray about. I can only offer you some suggestions. I can only offer you some ideas on that. But I know what not to do. I know that you don't need to jump on your students. I think there's better ways to do it, and keeping your youth ministry together versus creating guilt or shame or any of those things. Because if it's coming out of like, hey guys, you need to make me look good, so you need to go invite friends, that's the wrong motivation. The motivation is you're trying to help them mature into people who love Jesus, right? And if you love Jesus, you love your neighbor. And if you love your neighbor, then why not invite them to a community that we have here called youth, where they could find how to grow. And I think that's the best place to come from, is that you're saying, look, I'm trying to help you mature in your faith. And part of maturity is growing together. And part of maturity is sharing your faith. And part of Christian maturity and following Jesus is getting to a place where you don't care about other people's opinions. You simply say, hey, I want to invite you to church, and if you think I'm an idiot for doing that, then so be it, right? But that's about maturity. You're helping mature kids, not wrangle them. They're not there to, complete your master plan of having the largest youth ministry in town. They're there because they want to be loved and they want to be cared for, and they don't want to be a tool in the ministry box for growing the largest ministry in town. Growth should be natural. Growth should be an outpouring of their relationship with God, which is what you do have input into. If you tell them, this is my input, I'm here to help you grow in your relationship with God, and an overflow of that is that you love your neighbor enough to say, hey, why don't you come to youth? Why don't you come to church? Better still, why don't you come to Jesus, right? Have students sharing the gospel outside of group, right? Because that shows maturity, Christian maturity, that you can share your faith because it's a deep conviction, because you love your neighbor, right? So I hope that helps. I hope that, once again, about the other stuff, like sharing your feelings on other things, don't tell them that you're depressed. Don't tell them all the negative things. They have enough on their mind. They have enough on their mind. They don't need your problems or my problems on their head. They don't need to worry about your issues. That's what prayer is for. That's what therapy is for. That is what counseling is for. That is what your pastor is for. Go tell those things to those people. Give your kids what you can give them out of the purest place of your heart. If you're brokenhearted that they don't understand, then look, guys, say, I pray for you guys. I weep for you guys because I love you and because I want you to mature in your faith. Don't come from a place of those other things I said, because it just won't resonate, and it's not going to make you feel any better. So that is my response to that. So I hope that's helpful to anybody that's watching this, that about your feelings. And I think that's what you got to do. You got to do a feeling dump before you get up to preach, and just pour out your heart to God of all your frustrations, all those things, so that maybe it does not come across within your message. Make sure that when you're sharing, that your goal is to mature believers and not guilt them into doing something for you out of a place of selfishness. Fair enough? Fair enough, okay? Would love your comments about that, by the way. Feel free to leave comments about that. Would love to hear your thoughts on that, and in your thinkings, right? All right, so let's carry on here. Before we move on, though, I want to share with you a resource that I just got through. If I can fix my camera here. A resource that I just got through, that if you're interested, it is the Ultimate Youth Group Christmas Party List. You say, Paul, that's crazy. Why are you talking about this now? Well, I'm talking about it now because, well, if you haven't noticed in your big box stores, Christmas is out. It makes me sad. It just, it's either beat them, you can't beat them, join them. It's kind of the philosophy here. That if you are interested in party, Christmas party resources, Christmas is 3 months away or whatever it is, and why not start planning now? And this is a free resource, by the way. This doesn't cost anything, okay? And there'll be links down below that if you want this, it's free. All you do is join my newsletter, and you got it. And it comes with like 11 different themes, 13 different activities you can do. It comes with decoration ideas. It comes with room design ideas. It comes with links to videos. All the things that it asks all the important questions about doing a Christmas party and doing a Christmas party well. So if that is a resource for you, then go ahead. It'll be down in the show notes there, in the doobly-doo, as they say down there, in the thing there. So get it, grab it, start getting planning, right? Might as well. It's free anyway. Just take some notes, do it with your students, do it with your leaders, and start getting a plan together as to how you're going to do your Christmas party this year. All right? Cool. All right, let's go ahead. I have to look around my camera, so I apologize if I have to do this. Okay? Let's go on to question. This is our last question. Like I said, if you're just joining us, this is something I do every Wednesday. This is called Office Hours. My name is Paul Turner from thediscipleproject.net. And I answer questions every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, so that I can help you build a successful youth ministry, right? If you can take my advice, my wisdom after 30 years of youth ministry to help do that, then that is what I want to do. That's how I want to use my time with you, is answer these questions for you. And so if you have a question that I have not answered, well, be sure to go ahead and leave a comment below for the next session if you're watching this in the future, or go ahead and watch it. Leave your comment, and I will put it in the next office hours. Okay, and be able to do that. So let's go ahead and carry on to question, and the last and final question here. And once again, I got to look at my screen there. Let's see. Hey, Jeff. Jeff is here today. See what Jeff is saying today. Jeff, how many ministries have you served in? Let's see. Jeff, I have served in 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see, count them up. But now you're asking a question here that's like I got to do math. Jeff is let's see. Let's go, Nate. How many? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you don't count camp, serving at a camp for 4 years. I'm really old, Jeff, so that's I've served in a number of places. So yeah, I've served in about, I think, 8. I want to say 8 8 ministry locations, right? And so, yeah, eight churches, right? That's pretty good for 30 years, I think. Not bad, with some time off in between, right? Not bad. Hey, Mike. Mike, thanks for joining today. Mike says, hi, Paul. Really enjoy your games videos. Great resource. Thank you. Thank you so much. How did you know when to move on? Are you asking, Jeff? Jeff, are you asking, good or bad? How did you know when it was time to move on from your church? Is that what you're asking, Jeff? How did I know? It's a good question. I think I knew when to move on is when I could not. Burnout probably played a part in this, right? Burnout probably played a part. Could I agree with the vision of the people, right? Was the conflict, was the ROI, the return on investment, was the return on investment getting more and more difficult? Could I not do... Now, there are some things, I will say this, and I'm going to put a link. By the way, I've written on this before. I've talked about it on my podcast. I have videos on it. I'm going to put a whole bunch of those down there for you, Jeff. So just know that. I'm going to just come back and I'll put them in there. But the thing is that I had to be... I only know what I can endure. I only know what my family can endure. There's also a part of it that I have to ask myself, because there's times when I wanted to quit and I didn't, because I had to ask the question, God, what are you teaching me? A lot of times, Jeff, youth pastors leave churches before God is done teaching them. That youth pastors run away from hard situations because they simply don't want to be humble. They don't want to die to themselves. They don't want to agree with the pastor. There's lots of reasons, right? So I had to weigh my discomfort or what I thought was the right way forward, balanced with what is God telling me? What is God trying to tell me in this situation? Am I running away from this because I don't want to grow up? Am I running away from this because I don't want to mature in my faith? Is it because I just don't want to deal with a hard thing? Because guess what? If you go to another church, there's going to be hard things, hard conversations that have to be had. And if I keep running from those, and I'm constantly running from those, I'll never mature in my faith. I'll always just find another job. I'll always just find another reason to leave. I'll always find another excuse to leave. That being said, there are situations where if the church is way too toxic, it's just too toxic. It's just not functionable. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Once again, there's young man Paul talking and old man Paul talking. Young man Paul talking was the guy who would leave a church when things weren't going his way. Old man Paul figures out and says, this is a toxic situation. It's not good for me. It's not good for my faith. It's destroying me from the inside. It is not good. It is, in some cases, not worth it having the conversation unless the Lord says, go have the conversation. And in some cases I have, and in some cases I haven't. So that being said, it is up to every youth pastor and every staff member of a church. Can I recommend too, Jeff, I want to recommend a book to you called Raised to Stay. I'll put that down in the show notes. I wish I had it with me. I should have it with me with every episode because it's a great book. Raised to Stay, and it talks about people being hurt in the church. It talks about how to endure. It talks about all those things. So I'll put a link down in the show notes there for that because it's a great book. Every youth pastor should read it because it deals with the situations and of that church that you go through in churches and how you can behave and how you can be proactive in a lot of ways. Yeah, Raised to Stay. Yep, that's it, Jeff. And so I hope that answer was helpful to you. I will put more resources down below because I think it's a valuable question, but it is ultimately a question that you have to answer for you, for your family. But you got to sit there before God, right? You got to let God point out the phoniness in you and in me when I do it, and say, no, that's not a good enough reason. No, that's not this. No. And also, God will show you. Sometimes, of those 8 churches that I've been in, 2 have let me go. And that was God's, I saw that as God's way later on, hindsight being 2020, that God was getting me out of a situation. God was releasing me from a place. And that's the only way he was going to do it, because I'm a loyal person. And sometimes the only way God gets you out is he boots you out. And it's hard at first, but then you go, yeah, that was probably for the best. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for protecting me. As terrible as it was, the experience it was probably the best for me to do that. So, like I said, Jeff, hopefully that is super helpful to you, and I've answered your question today. But thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part here today. Last question. I'm gonna land the plane here, guys. But thank you so much. I'll answer questions as long as people have them. But I want to be fair to everybody's time. So, in this question is, what do you do when you have conflicts with other staff members? It's a good question. I've had my share of conflict with other staff members. And I think, once again, you're talking about, yeah, Jeff, loyalty's big, buddy. It's a big thing. I know. We're good soldiers, bro. We're good soldiers, right? Good soldiers in the army of God. And sometimes, though, we got to take care of ourselves. So, man, I'm going to pray extra prayers for you, buddy. Just know that. I'm going to pray for you, okay? So, once again, there's young man Paul and old man Paul. Young man Paul eats conflict for breakfast. He does not mind conflict at all. He doesn't like. I mean, he still lives in there somewhere. Old man Paul doesn't mind conflict at all either. But young man Paul wanted conflict because he could have conflict, because he thought, well, if I throw that out there, if I have this conflict, like, I'm going to be right. If old man Paul has a conflict with somebody else, the maturity, hopefully, in faith and in life and in wisdom takes over, right? Because nobody likes to be disliked, right? And I'm of the opinion, both when I was younger, both young man Paul, old man Paul are kind of the same in the sense that he just doesn't care what people think of him, really. So I have opinions, right? I say things. But when you're a part of a church body, when you're part of a church staff, guess what? You don't get to have all the opinions. You'd have some. But you can't be, if you have conflict with another staff member, be it the children's pastor, executive pastor, whoever it is on staff, how you handle that, that I have to put down my opinions. I have to put down what I want and think big picture. Not just what Paul wants. Not just what I think is best for youth ministry, but what is good for church. And so when I do this, I have to process this person. Are they just, what is, I'm a good piece of advice is, that Gary Vaynerchuk gives, is if that person is so miserable that they don't like you, for whatever reason is that they don't like you, be empathetic towards them. Use empathy, right? Think, what is wrong? This guy must be having a hard life. This guy must be having a hard time. What is wrong with him? Right? Rather than striking out at him and almost justifying his dislike of me and striking out at him or striking back, or, it's kind of like they're like, Emperor Palpatine, where it's like, yeah, strike me down, and I'll be more powerful than ever, right? They're almost begging for to be struck down so that they can justify their hurt and their pain. And so my response to people who are in conflict with me is to be empathetic rather than justify their hurt, is to simply come across and say, you know what, man, I don't know what our issue is, but we got to work on it. It's something we can work on together, right? Put it out in the open, right? Rather than skulk around, right? Like, like two assassins trying to get at each other. It's not going to work. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be great for church dynamics. It's not going to be good for your relationship. It's not going to be good for the ministry. It's not going to be good for the kingdom of God. And ultimately, the kingdom of God is the healing of the relationship. That's the deal. It's not just so that the work of God can go on. The actual healing of the relationship is a reflection of the kingdom of God within us that says, you know what? We have to take care of this. We have to be able to, go forward. And the healing of the relationship or the restoration of a relationship is not so that the work can go on. It's so that the work can be the work. That is the work in most cases. It's not so you can go off and just be, free of whatever, that resolving conflict in staff and those issues, the goal is restoration. The goal is ultimately that. Now, you know what? At the end of the day, you can't make everybody like you. Not everybody's going to like you. What I say is, though, is that you can do everything to prevent them from disliking you more. So don't be antagonistic. Don't be a smart aleck. Those are tough for me. I'll just being honest. It's tough for me because I'm very quick. If you can't tell, I do have the gift of gab, and I can be quick. And so I try to slow it down to where I'm not harming anyone or I'm not harming the relationship more than it needs to be. And I try to be honest, and I try to be curious. I try to be empathetic. I try to understand before being understood. Those are hard. I wish I could tell you that I've perfected or mastered the process. I have not. It is moment by moment. It is prayer driven. It is, oftentimes with great strain that I have to, put myself to death and, carry my cross and sometimes just shut my mouth and seek reconciliation. And if the person doesn't like me, I'm not going to antagonize them. I'm going to find a way to serve them, though. If I could add one little extra point to this, is that I lost my train of thought. The extra point is this, I think, is find a way to serve them, right? If your ministries are in conflict, offer your youth ministry, right? Your ministry to serve somebody else's ministry. If it's you personally, then when they have a need, find a way to fill that need and help, right? Rather than saying, I'm not helping you because you didn't help me do such and such. Well, that is, let's just face it, it's childish. And so we can't be that way. If we're going to mature in the faith, then we've got to do hard things. Okay? But yeah, I hope that answers your question. And Mike's got a question here. Let me go and take this off here. Let's see, Mike, tough question to answer, but you did it with wisdom, clearly gained from real world experience and loaded with grace. Love this answer. Thank you, buddy. Thank you, buddy. You go, old man Paul. That's it. I'm like old man Logan. That's me, old man Logan, Mike. I'm working on it, buddy. I'm just trying to mature in the faith, just like everybody else. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert Christian. I'm not anything. I'm just telling you about my failures, okay? Plenty of times that I have failed, and you get to have a front row seat to young man Paul's failures. So my goal is to just fail less if I can, right? At least not at the same things. I like to go fail at some new things. And that way I can tell you how I did that, I guess. But that's it, guys. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, listening today. I want to share with you one last resource if I can. And that is the back to school bundle that I have. That if you are not ready for, let me move this over here. Move that over there. If you're not ready yet for fall and you need a back to school bundle, actually 18 weeks is wrong. It's 22 weeks. I throw some other stuff in here. Just banger lessons, man. I'm just telling you, if you're looking for some lessons, if you would spend more time with students and less time prepping, once again, you can take these lessons here and make them your own. I've given you outlines if you've used any of my resources before. It's a full message, right? There are full messages in each of those lessons that I do. There's resources in there. There's links. There's opening games. There's closers sometimes in some of these where I give you closing options. There are discussion questions and all that, but there's a ton of other stuff in here. Something that comes in this that I don't think comes in my fall bundle is that you're going to get free 30 minutes of coaching just for your youth ministry, just for you. It's just 30 minutes one-on-one. So when you buy this resource over here, you're going to get that. And you set up an appointment with me. We sit down, we talk about your youth ministry, and we work it out together, right? We start talking about how to maybe use the curriculum, or we talk about how to, how to do these things together. What are you trying to do in your youth ministry? And I try to answer your questions for your youth ministry and help you plug that in, right? So if you are looking for lessons, let me encourage you, go grab the back to school bundle. It will not break your budget. And it will be, there's a lot of other tools in there and things that you're going to be interested in. So check it out, link down in the doobly-doo down there, okay? And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much. All the questions, lots of questions today. I want to thank Jeff, Mike, Steve Case, who is an old school youth guy too. Good dude. And I want to thank you guys for watching today. Thanks for hanging out. Join me next time, next week, 2 p.m., okay? Central Standard Time. Leave your questions down below if you're watching this in the future. Be sure to go and hit this thumbs up button. It tells me you like the video and you want more of them. And I'll catch you guys at the next office hours. All right, everybody? We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one, everybody. Have a great youth meeting tonight. We'll talk to you soon.